Raheem Morris's end of the season press conference yesterday, he was asked about some potential staff turnover and did not confidently say that defensive coordinator, who has not been the most popular man amongst Falcons fans, will be returning for 2025. So if we see a change at DC, which likely what's going to happen is the Falcons internally are going to spend the next 24, 48-ish hours reviewing everything. And if someone gets fired that they really like at that job, maybe they decide then to make a move. So with that in mind, I want to look at some potential replacement options if Jimmy Lake gets fired, because the Falcons defense this past season was bottom 10, right? Can we all agree on this? I don't think we need to argue that. They were 23rd in points and yards, third down in red zone, some of the worst in the NFL. Thanks to the New England Patriots, they avoided being dead last in sacks, and also kudos to themselves for really picking it up in the last 5-6 weeks of the season. But there was just no calling card for the Atlanta Falcons defense. If I had to think of a compliment for the Falcons defense, it would just be Jesse Bates existed. And that's pretty much it. So as a defensive coordinator, I don't think Jimmy Lake was dealt the best hand, right? They didn't use a first-round draft pick on a defensive player. Their first defensive player taken was Rukaroro, who really didn't have much of a role on this defense for the first two-thirds of the season. Braylon Trice, their third-round draft pick out of Washington, tore his ACL in the very first preseason game. So it's not like he had a star plethora of players to work with, but you had A.J. Terrell, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, Matthew Judon. Like, those are some notable names, and this defense produced squat. So with that in mind, I think Raheem Morris should look to upgrade. I think he should look and see, is there someone out there that can do a better job than Jimmy Lake? And to me, the answer is yes. There are some really good defensive coordinator options out there that Atlanta should pursue. But I want to get the pulse of everyone watching before I show those three options. Give me a yes or no in the comment section. Do you want a change at defensive coordinator? This is the pinned comment, so if YouTube comes on by with an ad break, scroll on down and give me a yes or no. First replacement option I want to look at is former Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, who was recently let go after a disappointing season for Cincinnati, and largely because of their defense. So I know this is not a great time to advocate for the Bengals' former defensive coordinator, but I think this was a mistake by Cincinnati. I understand that heads got to roll when you finish 9-8 and all the talent you had, and the finger gets pointed to the defense because Joe Burrow played the best season of his NFL career, and it was all for naught. But I feel like this might be a bit of an overreaction, because the real issue with the Bengals defense, I don't think was coaching. I think it was just personnel. I mean, this is what happens when you've got a small market team being run like a small market team. They did not have the spending abilities to bring back guys like Jesse Bates, right? The Bengals are not some wealthy billionaire conglomerate group like Arthur Blank. You know what I mean? It is a family-run business, and they have a lot of mouths to feed right now on offense. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and coming up soon, T. Higgins. So they just did not go out there and prioritize defense. And Lou has done a fantastic job for much of his time in Cincinnati. I mean, we can look at the Bengals' points allowed throughout his 6 years as their DC. Year 1, 25th in the NFL in points. Year 2, improved, 22nd. Year 3, even better, 17th. Year 4, 6th. Now, the last 2 years, I'll give it to you guys, have not been the best from Anarumo, but that's a defensive coordinator that took the Bengals all the way to the Super Bowl along with Burrow and the offense. And there's a lot of positive from his time in Cincinnati. It wasn't too long ago. He was getting head coaching interviews. I ultimately think that after 6 seasons, it can be tough to kind of keep your message up before things start to get a little redundant or stale. And with the lack of priority placed on the defense in free agency and in the draft, I'm not shocked that things started to go south this year. I still think he's a fantastic coach. He's got loads of NFL experience. So I see Anarumo, like a lot of these candidates, as an upgrade from Jimmy Lake. Now, one nugget to toss your way is Anarumo was with the Miami Dolphins for a stretch. You know who also was with the Dolphins in that time? Ben Johnson, who is likely going to get a head coaching gig. So Lou might just be sitting at home waiting for his old bud Ben to call and say, do you want to come coach with me in Chicago, New Orleans, New York, whoever he ends up? So that's one thing to keep in mind as a potential hurdle from Anarumo coming down to Atlanta. Second coordinator watch for is former head coach and former DC, Robert Saleh. He was unceremoniously fired by the New York Jets because Woody Johnson was embarrassed by all of his UK buddies after losing in London to the Vikings. And I still think Robert Saleh is I think he's a great defensive coordinator. And I think he's a good coach. I think he just got a bit of a raw deal coaching with the most dysfunctional organization in all of sports, the New York Jets. And they ultimately picked Rodgers over Saleh, and that was a bad pick to make because things did not improve after Robert Saleh was fired. So, in 3.25 seasons with the Jets, he went 20-36. His best year were 7-10 seasons, but we all know the Jets had a ton of quarterback issues. Zach Wilson was simply not the guy. Aaron Rodgers, Achilles, and then this year just flat out Father Time catching up to him. But if you don't know, Saleh was the 49ers defensive coordinator before he got the gig over in East Rutherford, and he was a fantastic DC for the 49ers. And I've got more to share on that in just a second. But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor today, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. Basketball season is, of course, heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. So here are some examples of Prize Picks selections for this upcoming slate of games. I invite everyone watching to go ahead and download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So getting back to Robert Saleh, you can look at his stats or the team stats, I should say, in terms of points allowed, which I'll just use this metric for today. It's not the only way to evaluate a coach, but it's a good starting point. And you can look at year 1 with the Jets compared to year 2. Look at the improvement that was made. Now, it's a lot easier to keep offense consistent compared to defense because there's so much volatility involved with defense. Takeaways is a prime example of that. Sometimes the ball bounces to your hands. Sometimes it bounces to the offense's hands, and that robs you of an opportunity to get off the field. So you'll always see defensive numbers go up and down. But if we're looking at options out there, I don't think anyone needs convincing that Robert Saleh is a very, very good defensive coach. And the reason why he's not a head coach is because the quarterback position kind of screwed him over. That and some of his, I wouldn't say messaging, but the way he bent the knee to Aaron Rodgers, I just go back to that season of Hard Knocks where he was basically on 2 knees for 8, and it was just a little weird, and ultimately I think he put the player ahead of the team, but that may be why he doesn't work out as a head coach, but I can tell you that as a defensive coordinator, he did an incredible job with the 49ers. He helped Jimmy Garoppolo get to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Robert Saleh as a potential DC in Atlanta. Third candidate to watch for, Jerod Mayo, former Patriots head coach, because he was fired just a day after. No, I don't think even a day after. He got fired after the Patriots win, did he not? Yeah, so that was a tough deal for Jerod Mayo. But 4-13 season, and ultimately New England decided to move on from him. Personally, I think they just fired him because they really want Mike Vrabel. Why they didn't do that last year, I'm not sure. They had a plan of succession in place. Maybe they really couldn't circumvent that. But Jerod Mayo, I think, got a little bit screwed over here. But we all know that he is a very successful player. I mean, played for the Patriots his entire career, 2018 to 15, was their inside linebackers coach, and then their linebackers coach for a couple of years before replacing Bill Belichick. This season for the New England defense, not the best, but not the worst. 22nd in points and yards allowed. Takeaways and sacks is what really held them back. But we just talked about, take Lou Anarumo, for example, and Robert Saleh. Can we all agree that they had seasons where they had very good defenses? but their first season was not their calling card, right? So improvements were made. I'm not going to judge Mayo based off his first season completely at the wheel for an entire football operations. But New England was clearly confident in him to make him the succession plan for Bill Belichick. Ultimately, I think that plan got tweaked when an unexpected availability popped up, Mike Vrabel. But I think Mayo got the short end of the stick here. I don't think he deserved to be fired after one 14-win season. The Patriots roster sucked, and 4 wins might be a slight accomplishment. So I'm not giving up on Mayo as a coach just because he was a one and done. I think it was just bad timing for him and unfortunate. So if he wants to come down to Atlanta, I'm all aboard. I think he'd be a fantastic DC. He's got lots of experience under Bill Belichick, and we usually see Belichick disciples not do super well when they go other places to be a head coach, but when they're in their role of a coordinator, they do very, very well. So any of these 3 options in my book is an upgrade over Jimmy Lake. So of the 3 we talked about today, let me know in the comment section which candidate you would like to see be the next defensive coordinator if Raheem Morris fires Jimmy Lake. If I had to rank these right here, I'd probably go Saleh 1, Anarumo 2, and Jerod Mayo 3, just because it would be a little bit of a new role for Mayo at defensive coordinator. But, I mean, he basically was that this year for New England, so it's not that different. It's not like he has to learn a whole new language or anything like that. But I still go to the experience of Saleh and Anarumo in that spot. Before we sign off, I think it's one last time. A quick shout out to the Dirty Birds Club for supporting us all 2024 season long. Jose Santana, Ken Ballard, Trey1222, Jason Landino, Reese Atkins, Archangel, Angry Liquid, Jeebus H. Christ, Dictator JC, JT, Jordan C. Johnson, Ronan Tyrell, Lord Buddy Bear, Bentley Lancaster, Curtis B., Adamus Shadicus, and hopefully Hopeful. Thank you guys so much for always hanging out with us during our watch parties and supporting the channel like you did all season long. But we're not going anywhere. We're not going to even pull back in the slightest. If anything, we're probably going to just crank things up a little bit because there is a very important offseason coming up for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, producer Reed has a new, ending to the video that I would like to kind of roll out over the next few days and weeks and see if it catches on. And that's just getting you guys incorporated to the show a little bit more. I know during the watch parties, everyone loves the duck races and the wheel spins. So what I did was I went and looked at some recent subscribers on the channel. So go ahead and subscribe right now because you could be on the next wheel. And we're just going to spin the wheel. And I think whoever it lands on, just a little 2-clap action for them. So let's spin the wheel for 10 or 9, whatever it is, recent subscribers to Falcons Today.
Let's go.
Here we go. And today's winner is Dave. Dave, you don't really win anything. That's probably the most important part of this wheel spin is we haven't thought about what the next step is, but we'll take it.
More just a shout out.
Yeah.
Dave
stinks. Everyone watching right now, 2 claps for Dave. 1, 2. I like to think
Thanks,
someone
Dave.
just swerved off the road. And they're like, what happened? Like, 2 claps.
Thanks, Dave.
That's not going to hold up in a court of law. Okay, Dave, thank you for subscribing. Make sure you subscribe, and you can be a part of the next wheel.